Whispers of the broken ship's stars shimmered like cold dust across the endless black, and somewhere in the space between them, a forgotten warship drifted in silence. The Calcera Dominion, rulers of 3 galaxies, had called the sector dead. Space. Nothing lived here. No fleets moved, no colonies pulsed with life. And yet, something moved now, a single ship, battered, burned, and ancient. It had no signal, no beacon. But it was not dead. High Commander Threx sat on the bridge of the Imperial cruiser Velnash Prime, his 6 eyes fixed on the long-range scan. "It's human tech," whispered one of his aides. The word human still echoed with unease even after. Centuries. The species had vanished from galactic records more than 200 cycles ago after the burning of Sol. They had not begged. They had not warned. They had simply disappeared. The galaxy had breathed easier since. Impossible, Threx growled. They were extinct. This is a ghost. But the image remained. A single ship, marked with the faded letters Isis Anesidora, moved slowly toward Imperial space. It was shaped like no current vessel, no glowing shields, no sleek edges. Its metal was rough, hand-forged in places. Black scorch scars ran along its hull, but it came. Steady. Inside the ship, the lone human was awake. His name was Elian. He sat quietly in the dim light of the control chamber, one hand resting on a cracked control lever, the other gripping a photo faded, worn, nearly falling apart. In the photo was a woman smiling and a little girl with tangled curls who looked just like him. They were gone now. Gone when the Empire had come for Earth. He had not spoken in years. Not out loud, not until now. You hear them, don't you? Elian whispered to the ship as if it were alive. And perhaps it was. Anesidora hummed softly in return. The old girl still carrying the pain and fire of a race that refused to die quietly. The command deck flickered. 1,000 stars burned on the screen, and in the distance, Imperial patrol ships circled, unaware. His voice cracked like old stone as he continued, "We gave them peace. They gave us ashes." His voice dropped, quiet and low, like thunder. "Far away, so now we give them something else." He remembered the day the fleet had fallen over Earth like locusts, the skies blackened with ships, the oceans boiled. They said it was necessary. A message to other species not to challenge. The Empire. But humans had never followed rules written by others. He had watched it all. Powerless. A scout pilot, expendable, forgotten. But he had found Anesidora deep in the bones of Titan Station. In a hangar no one dared enter. A prototype. Human. Tech mixed with something older. Something alien, maybe even divine. He didn't care. It worked. And now it was angry. Back on Velnash Prime. The bridge lights dimmed as the scan focused on the approaching shape. "It's powering up," the aide stammered. "Commander, it has no support vessels. It's alone." Threx's brow arched. "Then it dies alone." But it didn't. The first blast from Velnash Prime struck Anesidora head-on and dissolved, not deflected. Not absorbed, simply erased. What in the void was that? Threx barked. A second shot followed. Then a barrage. Fire lit the void. But nothing touched the human ship. And then, finally, Anesidora responded. It did not fire missiles. No beams, no shock waves. It simply moved forward, and with each pulse of its core, the Empire's fleet began to fail. Systems crashed. Lights died. Oxygen vanished. Crews screamed. The ships turned dark, one by one. Panic spread. Ships collided trying to flee. Captains abandoned command posts. One destroyer warped into its own escort. Threx stood frozen. "What? Is that ship?" The answer came, not from a voice, but from the very fabric of space. Something about the ship bent reality, tore logic, pulled fear from the bones. Inside Anesidora, Elian opened a hidden panel. Behind it, a glowing sphere pulsed gently. Alien. Yes, but bound to him. It had chosen him when no one else had. He reached toward it and whispered, "Not yet. Let them see first." On a nearby station, Commander Vika of the neutral Alari Syndicate watched in awe. She had heard the stories of humans, how they burned with love and rage, how they never stopped, how they changed everything they touched. She thought they were legends. Now she watched a legend fly, and she whispered almost in prayer, "There." Back, in the distance, across the edge of Imperial territory, other species turned to their monitors. Silence fell over councils. Warlords paused. Scientists gasped. One by one, the names spread again for the first time in centuries. Human. But what truly terrified them was not that the ship was human. It was that it was alone and still winning. The Empire strikes too late. Empire was never slow to act until now. The High Council of the Kalsera Dominion met in the Sky Palace, orbiting the twin suns of Valkyrin. They were the oldest rulers in the galaxy. Each wore robes laced with glowing gold, their skin like living stone carved over eons. The chamber trembled with the sound of a single name, whispered by 1,000 voices across the stars. Human. Counselor Dretz slammed his clawed hand on the table. "This is one ship, one," he shouted. "Are we to cower because of a myth?" No one answered. Because in the last 2 hours, 17 ships had gone dark. Not destroyed, just ... gone. Drifting. Powerless. Their crews were unresponsive, trapped. In vessels colder than death. Even now, the Velnash Prime, the Empire's pride, floated dead in space. And Anesidora had not even opened fire. A soft voice broke the silence. "The ship is not just human," said Counselor Linra, whose eyes glowed with ancient vision. "It carries something more. Something that bends the rules we know. Magic?" Dretz spat, disgusted. "Faith," Linra replied calmly. "Or vengeance." Meanwhile, deep in Imperial Sector V9, a new fleet assembled. Thousands of ships, drawn from the inner systems, surrounded the silent husk of Velnash Prime. They formed a net, a noose meant to choke the invader, but Elian didn't. Run. He stood on the deck of Anesidora, eyes closed, listening to the pulse of the ship. It beat like a second heart in his chest, deeper than fear, older than war. Around him, holograms shimmered, maps, fleets, data. He could see every ship, every captain, every heartbeat. And he felt them. The fear, the confusion, not hatred. Not. Yet, he pressed a hand to the wall. "They still don't understand," he whispered. The ship responded, humming softly. As if waiting, he looked down at the photo once more, the woman's smile, the little girl's laugh forever frozen in time. "Not yet," he said again. "Not until they remember why they fear us." The Imperial fleet moved in. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, pulse carriers, even Black Ops assassins. They surrounded Anesidora like wolves around a dying beast, but it was no beast. It was a memory that refused to fade. The first attack came in waves. Coordinated, flawless. They struck from all sides, energy fields bright as a false sun. The air shimmered with fire, with death. Inside Anesidora, it felt like wind passing over an old mountain. The ship didn't move. It didn't need to. Energy bent, gravity twisted. Sound died. And one by one, Imperial ships started turning. "On themselves. What is it doing?" shouted General Vrax aboard the Thorn's Fang. "Why are our ships?" His words were cut short as his own gunships locked targeting on their mother cruiser. Missiles launched, confusion, betrayal, silence. In the chaos, Anesidora moved for the first time, not to flee, but to approach. Elian's voice echoed across all frequencies. No encryption, no warning. You killed a planet because you feared us. His tone was calm, almost tired. You erased my home because we challenged your lies. He stepped forward, the light of the ship casting long shadows behind him. You erased my daughter's sky. In the Empire's command center, every leader, every officer, every worker stopped. Screens all across the fleet froze and showed the same face. Elin. His eyes burned, not with fire, but with something heavier. Something harder. Pain buried deep and turned into steel. So now, he said, you will listen. He raised his hand. No weapon. No button. Just a hand. And then anesidora released. Its first true act of war. But it wasn't a weapon. It was memory. Waves of human history poured into the minds of the fleet. Images of Earth. Cities, oceans, skies, music, love, war, sacrifice, laughter. The first jump into space. The last song sung before Soul went dark. And then ashes. The day Earth burned. Soldiers wept. Machines broke down. Officers clutched their heads and fell to their knees. It was too much. Too real. A young Imperial pilot whispered. They didn't scream. When we came, they didn't scream. They just stared at us. And then, one by one, Imperial ships began to turn off their weapons. Not because they were forced, but because they chose to. They had seen what had been lost. They had seen what they had done. On a far-off moon, a mother hugged her child tighter as the signal reached even the civilian sectors. An alien elder wept quietly as he remembered the human friend he had once betrayed. A war general in retirement knelt before the screen, whispering, they deserved better. But not everyone was ready to yield. Deep in the Empire's central core, dread Lord Vian, a creature of fire and bone, forged in the Empire's black labs, watched it all unfold. He smiled. So, he growled, the last human wants to speak. He turned to his commander. Then we will answer him. With silence, he pressed a crimson switch. The nullfire protocol was launched. It was ancient tech, banned by most civilized systems. A system killer. Not a weapon for war, but for extinction. It would reach anesidora in 4 cycles. Elian felt it the moment it launched. And he smiled. Not with joy. With peace. They're still afraid, he whispered to the ship. They still think we can be erased again. The ship pulsed around him. But now others were watching. On the edge of the Empire, small ships lit their drives. Neutral worlds began to murmur. And somewhere, in the shadows of a shattered star, a message repeated over and over. Across space, human. Alive and not alone. Echoes wake the sleeper. Nullfire protocol was unlike any other weapon. It was not designed to destroy ships or cities. It targeted the very threads of reality. It silenced energy. It unraveled atoms. Once launched, it could not be stopped. Not even by those who made it. The Empire called it their final silence. And now, it was heading straight for a anesidora. Inside the ancient human warship. Elian stood calmly, his hands resting on the railing above the ship's core chamber. He could feel it approaching, not with sensors, not with alarms. With instinct. They're trying to erase me again, he said softly. The lights in the room dimmed, as if the ship shared his sadness. He looked down at the picture in his pocket. Once more the woman's smile, the little girl's eyes full of light. He traced the edge of the photo gently. But this time, I'm ready. Meanwhile, across the Empire's many systems, the galaxy was shifting. On the neutral trade world of Juranis, where laws bent like wind and secrets sold better than spice. The image of Elian's face played across every display. The bartenders fell silent. Traders stared. Mercenaries paused mid-drink. That's a human, someone whispered. They're all gone. said another, but then a voice rose in reply, a deep, dry voice from the back of the room. Not all. An old man stepped forward, hunched, scarred, eyes like cracked steel. No one knew his name. He'd been there for years, watching, listening. His ship, he said, was one of ours. It was made at Titan Blackforge, a place where we mix steel and soul. She was the last of her kind, and she waited for someone worthy. Waited? For what? Someone asked. He stared at the screen, at Elian. For the one who still remembered. On a distant moon prison, in a cell buried beneath layers of stone and regret, a woman lifted her head. Her eyes flared with sudden light. Elian, she whispered. She remembered the name. Remembered the boy who had spoken of peace even when soldiers laughed. Remembered the friend who had once said, "If I ever come back, it will be with." The stars behind me, she stood, her chains falling loose. The guards screamed and drew their weapons. She raised her hand, and they stopped moving. Outside the moon's atmosphere, 5 ships lit up, ships long thought lost, hidden, human designs mixed with alien cores. Sleeper vessels that they had heard the call buried in Anesidora's pulse. Aboard the warship, Elian stood before the sphere at the heart of the vessel. It pulsed brighter now, sensing its siblings awaken. 5 points of light had returned to the galaxy. The Empire's net was beginning to tear, but Nullfire still approached, a death wave cloaked in silence, erasing everything in its path. On the Empire's side, Dread Lord Vian smiled from his dark citadel. "Let him burn," he said to the gathered officers. "Let his memory vanish like his people." But even as the weapon neared, cracks were appearing in the Empire's heart. In the shipyards of Dantor, engineers paused. One of them, a young half-blood named Sella, stared at her data screen, hands trembling. Her father had told her stories of humans who stood when others knelt, who shared food in famine, who held the line when monsters rose. Now she saw Elian. And she saw her father's stories were true. She turned to her supervisor. "I resign," she said. He laughed. "Where would you even go?" She looked up. "To help him." And she wasn't alone. On station after station, across quiet worlds and busy hubs, individuals began to walk away from their posts. Soldiers laid down their arms. Ships quietly changed course. The galaxy was listening and remembering. Back aboard Anesidora, the warning light flashed. The Nullfire was seconds away. Elian turned toward the core and whispered, "You don't have to protect me. Just remember me." But the ship refused. Instead, it opened a memory chamber hidden since its creation. Elian fell to his knees. Inside were voices, thousands of them. Old recordings. Human voices, laughter, tears, songs, messages to families, soldiers saying goodbye, children learning to count, lovers whispering promises under stars. The essence of a people. Their final gift. The sphere pulsed once more. And then silence. But not death. Anesidora did not vanish. Instead, a field of golden light bloomed around her. It spread like wings, slow and unstoppable. The Nullfire touched it and stopped, not destroyed. Not erased, but remembered. A moment later, the wave of death turned and dissolved. Back in Van's citadel, alarm screamed. "What happened?" He roared. A trembling officer stuttered, "The protocol failed." It changed course, as if something spoke to it. "Nothing speaks to Nullfire." Vian shouted. But deep in the Empire, fear was blooming, for they had tried to erase something that could not be forgotten, and were still others. Were waking. Ships. People. Memories. The stars themselves were stirring. Ian looked to the stars and felt them shifting. "It's starting," he said. "The galaxy doesn't want a war anymore. It wants to remember who it used to be. The ship answered him in soundless calm, and from the shadows, 6 more ancient ships began their journey. The human warship was no longer alone. The 6 who remembered the void between stars had always been quiet. But now, it hugged UMMED. From the dark edges of forgotten space, 6 ships moved as one. Each bore scars of old battles, deep lines cut through armor and time. No two looked alike. Some glowed with strange alien energy, others burned with the blue fire of ancient Earth engines. But they all shared one thing, the mark of humanity, and something more. Something deeper. They had been called the Last 6. Legend said they were built in secret during Earth's final days, scattered across the stars before the fall. Not to fight, but to wait. To wait for the one who would light the fire again. Now they moved toward Anesidora. Drawn by the pulse of her memory. Inside his ship, Elian stood in silence as the holograms blinked one by one. Signals, real, living signals, appeared in the void. He could feel them. Not ships, he realized. People, minds, souls. Each one bound by something older than fear. They came, he whispered. They actually came back. The ship answered in a soft hum, like a mother's voice through steel. It had waited too for them. For this, on the bridge of the second ship, a woman stood in a long coat of deep red, her face marked by war and time. Her name was Commander Haley Shen. She was once the captain of the Farsight, a deep scout sent out just before the end. She had slept in cryo for centuries, watched stars die, and now she was awake. "Patch me through," she said. A moment later, Elian heard her voice crackle through the comm. "You're a damn fool, Elian," she said with a tired smile. "But you brought us back." "You remembered," he said, choking on the words. "How could we forget?" One by one, the others spoke. Captain Dallow of Meridian's Blade, the old war strategist who once turned entire fleets with a whisper, twin engineers Lena and Leo. Vance aboard the chaotic ship Wild Patch, made from scavenged dreams and stolen tech. Grandmother Cora, keeper of the ship Ashes of Eden, her voice slow like old rivers, filled with the weight of memory. And the 6th, no name, no voice. Only a ship made of black stone and light, known as Echo 6. No one ever truly knew who flew her. But she had always come when humanity's heart was breaking. They formed a ring around Anesidora, their lights pulsing in time with her core. Together they looked like a constellation come to life, and the galaxy noticed. On neutral worlds, people stopped and watched the sky. Messages flooded across the gamut. Even distant species who once believed humans were myths now asked, "Who are they?" And some already knew the answer. "They're the ones who remember," said a young alien child watching the ships pass overhead. The Empire, however, reacted with fury. In the fortress moon of Aurella's prime, Dread Lord Van's fury turned to fire. "I want every ship we have launched," he screamed. "I want those vessels found, destroyed, erased." His voice thundered across command lines. No survivors, no symbols, no hope. He didn't fear the ships. He feared what they carried, the story. Because a story, when told the right way, could break empires. Soon, massive fleets began to mobilize. Across the Empire, war banners were lit. Thousands of ships moved toward the edge of controlled space, where Anesidora and the 6 now waited. And Elian watched them come. He stood on the viewing deck, arms crossed, heart steady. Behind him, Haley stepped onto the ship for the first time in centuries. She looked around, touching the walls gently. "It's like she's alive," she said. "She is," Elian replied. "So what's the plan?" He looked out at the stars. "We don't fight to win," he said. "We fight to remind." Haley frowned. "They're bringing a full extermination force." "I know." "And we're bringing what? 7 ships?" He turned to her, eyes burning. "We're bringing the truth, She stared at him. And then, slowly, she smiled. God, I missed you humans. One by one, the ships began broadcasting again, not threats, not warnings. Just memories, songs, stories, laughing children, first steps on alien soil. Words of peace between enemies, last goodbyes whispered on burned ground. They played across open channels, impossible to block. And the galaxy listened. On the Empire's capital world, a young cadet named Jurek listened in secret. He'd been raised to believe humans were chaos, that their destruction had brought balance, but as he heard the sound of a human child asking her father why stars sparkle, his heart cracked open. And he began to question. The first cracks of rebellion had formed, not from weapons, from wonder. But the Empire was close now. Hours away. And VN had one last weapon. He opened a chamber no one had touched in 1,000 years. Inside floated a black core, cold, hungry, alive. The star withered. Not a weapon built to kill ships. A weapon built to kill hope. It would wipe memory, erase culture, rewrite minds. With it, the Empire would not destroy the humans. It would unmake them. As VN activated the weapon, a deep silence fell across space. And on Anesidora, Elian felt it. A cold chill, like a hand pressing against his soul. They're trying to erase our story, he whispered. Haley turned sharply. Then we better tell it loud. He nodded. And pressed his hand to the ship's core. The ship began to sing. Not in words, but in emotion, deep waves of sorrow, joy, love, and rage flowing through the stars. The 6 ships joined in, their cores glowing brighter. They would not run. They would not beg. They would stand. The last war had begun. Not to win, but to make the galaxy remember. The war for Memrith Empire's sky turned red. From every corner of their domain. Ships swarmed forward, cold, sharp, perfect machines built for one thing: silence. Silence of the past. Silence of defiance. Silence of truth. In the lead flew the dread fleet Black Veil, cloaked in shadow tech and powered by systems that bent physics. Behind it, 30,000 Imperial warships followed in tight formations, each crew trained from birth, their minds conditioned to obey. But in front of them stood only 7: Anesidora, Farsight, Meridian's Blade, Wild Patch. Ashes of Eden. Echo 6. And one last ship, the smallest, almost broken, crawling with vines and patched with old solar panels, called light upon the ruin. No one remembered it being built. No one remembered who flew it, but it was here. Elin stood at the helm of Anesidora, his hand steady, though his chest burned with quiet fire. Behind him, Haley ran systems checks, while across the galaxy, others tuned in. Every broadcast signal had been hijacked. Every screen across the Empire now showed the 7 ships. Not through military feeds, but through the ships themselves. They wanted to be seen. You know what's coming, Haley said beside him. You know they'll erase everything we are. Elian didn't answer right away. He stared at the stars. They were brighter now. Maybe because it was the last time he'd see them. They're not just coming to kill us, he said finally. They're coming to erase the feeling of what it meant to be human. Haley looked down, eyes heavy. Then let's make them feel it one last time. Above them, the Imperial fleet arrived. Space lit up with blue fire, engines roaring like gods, cannons glowing. And then came the Star Wither. The weapon wasn't launched. It simply spread, a black wave of forgetting, like ink poured into the galaxy. Swallowing light, systems failed, thoughts became fog, languages twisted. Across the Empire's edge, entire colonies blinked in confusion, forgetting their names, their history, their songs. On the neutral world of Juranis, the little alien child dropped her music stone and asked her mother, "Who are the humans?" No one could answer, but on the battlefield, the 7 remembered, and they fought. not with overwhelming firepower. Not with numbers. They fought with meaning. Anesidora surged forward, her core blazing, not in attack, but in defiance. She projected human laughter into the void. Children's voices, old earth rainstorms, the sound of hands clapping after a long speech. Lovers kissing goodbye in airports. The wave of forgetting faltered. Then Farsight released memory echo shards of ancient broadcasts. News of Earth's early space days, the cheers as the first colonists stepped on Mars, the tears when they returned from the edge of known space with a dying crewmate. The wild patch did what it was born to do: chaos. It looped its signal into every Imperial ship's command lines, not with virus code, but with memories, smells of old books, the sound of fire crackling in a winter cabin, street vendors shouting under neon lights, "What is this?" An Imperial. Pilot screamed, "Why do I feel homesick for something I never knew?" And then Meridian's blade moved. Captain Dallo, old and tired, activated his final gambit. He transmitted one simple image across every screen: a human soldier in muddy armor, kneeling beside an injured alien child, bleeding, both hands out, unarmed. Text below it read, "We didn't want to conquer. We just wanted to live." The Empire's formation cracked. Some ships stopped firing, some turned around, and some joined them. A dozen Imperial ships broke ranks and flew alongside the seven. "This is madness," Dread Lord Vian hissed. He activated the Starwither's core to full capacity. Erase them all. Erase their thoughts. Erase their names. But as the wave surged again, something changed. Ashes of Eden moved to intercept. Grandmother Cora stood at her ship's center, arms raised, whispering the oldest song of Earth, one taught long before spaceflight, long before empires. A lullaby. And the ship responded. It glowed soft gold and bloomed into petals of memory, shedding pieces of itself into the black wave. Each petal contained a story, a name, a heartbeat. The wave hit her. And stopped, not blocked, but softened. For the first time, the Starwither hesitated. On 100 worlds, memory returned. On Girani's, the little girl picked up her music stone. "Mama," she said, "I remember. They sang like this." And then Echo 6 moved. She had never spoken, but now a sound came from her, low, ancient, beyond words. A vibration that rattled bones and stirred galaxies. A song not of humanity, but of what came before. The Empire had taken much, but they had not taken the soul. The wave shattered. Light upon the ruin moved next. No weapons. Just light. A pure white beam that swept across the battlefield, revealing not ships, but people. Young soldiers, scared commanders, children used as tacticians. All of them watched as their enemies fought not with hate, but with hope. Ian looked around him. "We're not winning," Haley said, eyes wide, "but they're feeling us." He smiled. "That's enough." Then the order came from Vian: destroy the core of Anesidora, now. A single dreadnought charged. Full speed, its main cannon aimed directly at Alien's ship. "This is it," Haley said. Ian nodded. But as the cannon charged, another ship blocked its path. Meridian's blade. Captain Dallo smiled through the comm. "Go on, kid. Tell the rest of the story." And he was gone. The explosion ripped through space, but the seven were now 6, and the galaxy wept. But also remembered. And the Empire, for the first time, began to feel something they had long forgotten. Shame. A galaxy that remembers. Debris of Meridian's blade still burned in orbit when silence fell across the battlefield. Not the silence of fear or victory or defeat, but something older. Grief. Captain Dallo was gone. His ship, his sacrifice, had shielded Anesidora from the dreadnought's final strike. and the Empire had witnessed it, not in shadow, but in light. Every Imperial ship screen, every distant station, every quiet corner of the galaxy had seen a man give his life, not for conquest, not for vengeance, but to protect a story. And something shifted. On board anesidora, Alien's hand shook. He stared at the flickering image of Meridian's blade, just a cloud now. Twisted metal, burnt memories. Haley spoke softly behind him. He knew it would happen, Alien nodded. But it still hurts. He turned back to the ship's core. Its pulsing light had dimmed. Not from damage, but from mourning. We can't stop now, he whispered. We owe him that. Across the stars, more ships defected. A dozen more Imperial warships broke rank, drifting toward the Seven, broadcasting peace signals. One captain, a young woman with glowing scars on her cheek, appeared on the shared feed. Her voice trembled. I've served the Empire all my life. They said humans were disease, fire, chaos. But now I hear music in your battles. I feel hope in your sorrow. I was wrong. She paused. I'm not the only one. From every corner, similar voices began to speak. Old warriors, tired commanders, enslaved minds cracking open. Not in rebellion. In realization. They had seen humanity. Not the blood, but the meaning. But dread Lord Vian would not allow it. Deep in his citadel, he activated the final sequence. The Oblivion Crucible, a weapon hidden beneath the Imperial core, so ancient it was forbidden by every known council. It didn't kill ships. It killed time. It would undo the last 6 hours of galactic memory. Wipe the moment the humans returned. Rewrite history before it could root. Erase it, he hissed. End them before their truth spreads. His hand hovered above the final key, but before he could press it, the system screamed and then went dark. Every light in his chamber blinked out. Every screen shattered. And from the center of the void, a black ship appeared. Echo-6. Its arrival was silent. Not even the Empire sensors could track her. She simply appeared in the dark above the Imperial core. Her body was shaped like a shard of night, her engines made of something no one could name. Inside the bridge, no one could see the pilot, but Vian felt her. His bones shook. His throat closed. He fell to his knees. No, he whispered. You were destroyed. You were only a myth. And then a single signal played from Echo-6, not words. Not code. A heartbeat. One long, steady thump. Boom. Followed by silence. Then again. Boom. The rhythm of life, of birth, of love, of rage. A human heartbeat broadcast to the galaxy. And the Oblivion Crucible froze. It could not erase what had become. Real. Back on anesidora, Alien stood tall again. His voice came through every frequency, low and steady. You wanted to erase us, but your own people now carry our songs. Your fleets dream in our memories. You can't kill a story once it's told. He looked around the bridge at his crew. Haley, the Vance twins on Wild Patch, Cora on Ashes of Eden, and whoever sailed Echo-6, silent guardian of forgotten truths. They see us, he whispered, really see us. But then the galaxy held its breath once more. A signal. Unknown. Ancient. Rising from beneath. A broken moon on the edge of Imperial territory. The message was simple, raw, barely intelligible. This is Soul. Ilian's heart stopped. He turned to Haley, her eyes wide, her mouth trembling. Soul? She whispered. Earth single quotes S*. The birthplace of humanity. It had been gone for centuries. Destroyed, erased from maps. But now something was calling from its last known position. Lock on, Alien said. You want to go there? Haley asked. We're not just fighting to be remembered, he said. We're fighting to return. And with that, Anesidora turned. The remaining ships followed. One by one. Imperial vessels hesitated. Some moved to stop them, but many stepped aside, because in their minds now lived a song. A fire, a heartbeat, and it was saying, "They're going home." And so the last journey began, toward Sol. Toward the ashes of a world they loved, toward the answer they had never dared to ask. Was anything left? Was anyone? The seven would find out or die trying. Return to the light. The journey to Sol was not quick. Even with the ancient drives of the seven ships, even with warp tunnels and phase jumps, the distance between what was and what had been stretched longer than time itself. Anesidora led them, quiet but determined, her hull scarred, her heart steady. The others followed like memories walking through flame. Farsight, Wild Patch, Ashes of Eden, Echo 6, and the weathered beauty of light upon the ruin. Where once they had fought, now they moved like a prayer whispered across stars. Behind them. The Empire watched but did not stop them. Too many hearts had turned. Too many questions had awakened. Some ships of the Empire quietly joined the procession, falling in behind the seven. Not as enemies, not even as allies, but as witnesses. The galactic network, once flooded with propaganda, now streamed images of the journey. Children stayed up through the night to watch. Elders lit candles in silence on the distant world of Vorthen. A blind poet touched her recording stone and simply said, "They go not to conquer, they go to remember." And at last Sol appeared, or what was left of it. The star itself still burned old, tired, but alive. But where Earth had once turned in gentle orbit, there was ruined. A scattered field of rock and dust, broken satellites, burned bones of once great cities. Haley said nothing when she saw it. No one did. Inside Anesidora, Elian stood frozen, his breath caught. His hands fell to his sides. And then he wept, not because it was gone. But because part of him had always hoped. It wasn't. The other captains joined him on the bridge, their voices low, their heads bowed. "Is this it?" One of the Vance twins whispered, "Is this how it ends?" Elian stepped forward, slow. He touched the console. The ship responded with a gentle hum. "No," he said, "this is how it begins." And then, from the debris field, something blinked. A signal. Weak. Buried under radiation and silence. Cora's voice crackled over the line. I feel something, old, buried deep." The ship scanned. Wild Patch sent drones. Echo 6 simply moved forward, her black frame vanishing into the ruins. And then the message became clear. A repeating pulse. 4 beats. Pause. 3 beats. Pause. 4 again. Morse code. A signal once used by ancient Earth. Navy. They all stared at each other. "There's someone out there," Haley whispered. "Or something." Elian added. The signal led them to a hidden mass buried beneath the shadow of a broken moon. It wasn't a ship. It was a vault. Earth made, locked for centuries.
Fused into rock and metal and silence. And yet
intact. With shaking hands. Elian sent the override. The doors hissed. Dust rose. And inside life. Not people, but recordings. Seeds. Books. The last library. The last farm. Gene banks. The last symphony. Halls encoded in crystal. Earth's soul. Not destroyed. Preserved. Not a weapon. A gift. "They tried to end us," Haley said, her voice trembling, "but we saved what mattered." Elian knelt by one of the memory vaults and opened. It. Inside were voices, laughter, wind, footsteps, music, the smell of pine trees, the rustle of autumn leaves, the taste of snow on a child's tongue, and the voice of a little girl saying, "Daddy, don't forget me." He covered his mouth. The photo in his pocket trembled in his hand. "I didn't," he whispered. And then, slowly, he stood. The others formed a circle around him. And then, ship by ship, they began transmitting, not war, not warning. Just memory. Earth's truth. To every corner of the galaxy. Stories of love. Stories of mistakes, of forgiveness, of songs sung in darkness, of hands held across broken bridges, of trying, of being human. And across the stars, the galaxy listened. And remembered. One by one. Alien races added their own memories of the humans they knew, of the ones who helped, who stayed, who refused to run. The Empire could not stop it, because it was no longer a rebellion. It was a story, and stories cannot be silenced once they are believed. Decades passed. Then centuries. Earth was rebuilt not as it was, but as it could be, not by humans alone, but by all who believed in what humanity stood for. Elian never left Anesidora. She was his home, his heart. When he finally passed, he was buried not in stone, but in memory. And Anesidora kept flying. With new children. New voices. New hearts. Because the ship, like the soul of his people, was built not just of steel, but of hope.